I'd love to chat a little bit about your whole journey making short films. Like you've obviously created quite a few, and I was curious along the way, like when did you first start really getting interested in the idea of I want to make a short film, and kind of really practically going about how to approach it in the first place?
Yeah. So just for the audience out there, so I think I've made 7 or 8 short films over the course of the last 10 years, just on the side.
Congratulations.
And also I started getting into music production as well. So I kind of use all of these creative outlets wherever I can. And like I said in the beginning, this is all sort of a gradual development from my sort of late high school and then college years, and sort of getting more and more confidence in, I really enjoy using my problem-solving skills in a creative environment. And so my first couple of years in the industry, when I was solidly when I had solidly arrived in filmmaking, I learned how to write scripts. I basically gobbled up every podcast on filmmaking that I could find. I just tried it, and of course, the first couple of years were terrible, as it always is. But after a couple of years, I kind of felt like, you know what, I may not be ready to write a feature script, but I have all these cool ideas for little scenes and almost music video type stuff. And I just grabbed my DSLR at the time and I made my first film. It wasn't really even a conscious decision, and I'm going to be a filmmaker now. It's just something that I really enjoyed. And it was a film about 2 snails falling in love, and they have a little dance before it's revealed that they're actually being boiled in a kitchen, and so that's together in death. And that film won a bunch of awards right out of the gate, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And so over the next years, I just made more and more, a couple of horror films, a couple of sort of sci-fi films, always with a very sort of emotional core. And I think I'm really not doing it for any other reason other than it's fun, and I kind of need it. Sort of that's kind of how I get a lot of things that are bubbling in around inside my head. That's how I get them out. It's a great sort of vent, and just practically speaking, you learn so much diving into those non-VFX related areas, because the films I've made, they've all used VFX, but it was just one of many tools, and that's how it should be. So I'm not one of those people who I do use my skills, my visual effects skills, but I don't write my movies around visual effects. And so I had to learn how to first operate cameras, and then later on the bigger productions I've made, how to talk to a camera department, makeup, production design, everything. And that's incredibly useful for when you finally in your career, when you're at a point where you arrive on set and you have to communicate with other departments.
Shy in the corner thinking someone will come to me and ask me when I'm ready.
It's overwhelming for the first time if you're not prepared. I mean, a real professional film set is an incredibly complex mechanism, right? And you constantly have the feeling that, if I say the wrong thing, if I take one wrong step, then I'm going to be fired. And making your own films and especially collaborating with other people, that are professionals in their own right, it really prepares you for the job.
I love that. With your short film receiving some awards, like what was it like kind of getting that validation after putting your heart and soul out there, rather than kind of second guessing yourself the whole time? Like, was that something that kind of helped you realize like, okay, cool, I'm onto something?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I kind of just made the first short film for myself, and then just uploaded it and kind of submitted it to a few sort of online things. And it did feel good. I don't put too much value on awards, because it's this whole thing where everyone's an award-winning filmmaker in some way, right? It's not too hard to win some kind of tiny award, because there's just so many festivals out there, and at the end of the day, a lot of them are businesses and they're just handing out awards. So it's I don't define myself by the awards that my films won, but what's actually a lot more meaningful to me is the reception from friends and family, and then from the online community. And I received so many nice comments about not just that first film, my later films as well. I made one film about an old man who had lost his wife and has one last dance with a hologram that he reconstructs from their wedding video, and it's very emotional. And people had reached out to me about losing their spouse and how emotional it was for them, and that kind of thing. Reaching people's hearts is really why I do it. And sometimes we even get to do that in visual effects. The worlds we create are meaningful to people out there, and that's what gives this work purpose, I think.
I love that, and you're absolutely right. I think getting people to feel something versus, I keep thinking in my career, there's probably like one or two films I feel like were real films versus popcorn, explosions and vampires burning and things like that. So I think when you actually reach that level of people not being entertained, but actually being able to relate, like that is the pinnacle,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love that. I'm curious. I actually talk about that is One Last Dance is the title of that short film.
Yeah,
that was beautiful. I guess from a technical standpoint, just because the characters, the CG characters in that especially looked phenomenal. Like, did you have a kind of level of quality going into that, how you wanted to approach it, and just more in terms of trying to get a certain kind of hyper-realism for the film?
It's interesting. This is actually something that I learned a lot of lessons there doing that hologram that I recently applied on Foundation. We'll probably get there, but I have a real problem with a lot of holograms in film, because holograms are kind of inherently stylized because they don't really exist in the real world at this point, at least, right? So you always have this perfect self-illuminated light display that just hovers in the middle of a room, and it just always looks fake because our brains are not used to seeing this. And so we try to compensate for it in VFX with things like light rays coming up from the source, but that really only works if the room is smoky, right? So I try to give it in The Last Dance, I try to give the hologram a more physical feel by so we hired all this light and laser equipment from a stage show, and then we filled the entire room up with smoke just to give the audience sort of an idea that there is, with a little bit of a leap of faith, there is a way of projecting light into a smoke volume from multiple light sources, right? But we did keep it very lo-fi. Like the hologram is reconstructed from a VHS tape, so it's very low res and it's kind of blurry in the volume. We did lots of tests trying to actually project images into a smoke volume. A lot of the decisions we made were deliberately degrading the look of the hologram to make it feel more physical. I didn't want it to be one of those perfect sci-fi clean looking holograms, and that's how I approach visual effects work in general. The first thought is always, how would this look in reality? Then you look at reference, then you do your own tests, and then of course you have to also honor the directors of the studio's intention and sort of merge all of that. But photorealism and just physical realism should always be number one on the list.
Yeah, no, that's really great.